If you're really interested in understanding more about how to be smarter in your online searching to support your businesses, if you want to be more efficient, the book that we're putting out is going to help with that. It's written in very clear language, in a very friendly tone. This is your guidebook for how to be smarter about doing your online searches to support your company.
Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I bring you inspirational stories, insights, and advice from top thought leaders to help you with the arc of your career and also your personal life. I'm also the founder of Her C-Suite, a powerful network community where women are meeting, engaging, and thriving in meaningful ways, and women are getting promoted, recommended, and doing business together. Everything is designed to make it easy for you to feel valued and level up all your connections in an easy one-stop place. I hope you will check it all out, especially as a listener. We are opening up a very special circle for you where you can meet our speakers, get advice, and have an office hour experience with me and get advice on your career and anything else that's on your mind. I hope that you will check it all out at hercsuite.com. Today's guest is Cynthia Hetherington. She is the founder and CEO of the Hetherington Group, a consulting, publishing, managed services, and training firm that leads in due diligence, corporate intelligence, and cyber investigations. Throughout her career, she has assisted clients on thousands of cases using online open sources and databases, as well as executing boots-on-the-ground operations. She provides specialized training for investigative professionals through the OSINT Academy and has authored many industry-leading books on conducting cyber investigations, including her latest, OSINT, the Authoritative Guide to Due Diligence, Essential Resources for Critical Business Intelligence. I know you are going to get so much insights and ideas from this interview, so let's get started now. Cynthia, I'm really excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today. I can't wait for this conversation. Thanks for being on the show.
Natalie, thank you so much. It's a real privilege to be here, and I look forward to sharing what I can in a little bit of time we have.
This is going to be a really great conversation because I've never had a conversation about this. We were just talking about it. And so I cannot wait for our listeners to hear all the things that we're going to talk about. But before we get into the details, I always like to start with, tell us a little bit about how you got into what you're doing and the arc of your career, because I find that so fascinating.
That's a great question, and it's kind of a fun story. I can hit those wave tops for you because the business in my career at this company, the one I own, the founder of, is 25 years old. But in the beginning, I am still actually a public librarian or a librarian. I have a master's of library science, and I have a master's in information management. And working in a public library system, I was answering questions for patrons that would come in, which meant I was Google. In fact, I predate Google. So if you had to know about Marco Polo, you wanted to know what refrigerator to buy, you came in, I would help you answer the question. I realized early in the career that information was just this, and still is, the commodity, and its strength and its influence is only getting greater every year. It just gets expanded by all the factors that are affecting it now: artificial intelligence, misinformation, and disinformation. So I was fortunate enough early on to realize I need to stop giving away answers for free and start charging. I got my license as a private detective. I still have a private detective license and we operate as one, but really where we operate is in the intelligence field. In the last 20 years, we have been supporting the Fortune 50 companies with their big intelligence needs, understanding where their threats are, what the economy is looking like, competitive spaces, landscapes, and there's a rack of awards out there. We helped move the vaccines across the globe. We supported the cargo supply chain when it broke down. We help with all sorts of strange things. Most of the time, you'll never hear about us, which is why you haven't had this conversation. but you'll read about something we're affecting every single day on the front page of a newspaper.
So good. And I just have to share, because you're the first person I've met about librarians, other than my mom, who was a librarian, but I had the opportunity to take typing or be a librarian volunteer. And I was like, I don't need to know typing, because this was back in typewriter days. I'm going to just be in the library. So the Dewey Decimal System. That's where I spend my time. So we have kindred spirits there. So I think that's very unique and fun. And I didn't know that about you. So that's really great. So
I
thank
love
you.
that.
But before we dive really deep into all the things, I think there's something that people may not even know, which is, what is open source intelligence? Because starting at the very surface, I think people hear different things, but we may not all know what it is that we're even finding out about.
The open source intelligence, or OSINT for short, is gaining an incredible amount of popularity in media. And you'll see, if you follow any of the news coming out of our government agencies, OSINT is now becoming a very buzzy expression. For my layman, I like to call it Googling with finesse, understanding what your search queries are going to give you and how you're going to get answers from the box in your hands or the device in front of you. From its traditional background, now, open source intelligence is actually an intelligence gathering of information from publicly identifiable sources. So we'll find public records, marketing brochures, all sorts of, things that people are sharing in their social media accounts openly, because everything is out there now, with the internet being as vast and wide as it is. But the part of that makes us intelligent is that we're not just out there like Google searching and finding interesting factoids. We're actually building a product out of it, which would be a report, like due diligence, which is the whole point of the book I wrote, was creating open source intelligence for doing due diligence. So using Google really in a finesse way to understand more about your company, what your company looks like out there, or what your competitors look like.
And I think part of what people might not realize how important it is the impact that risk. I like to say, what happens if you do something or you don't do something, right? You have two paths always in decision making. And if you don't know the gray rhino that's coming at you, or all the acronyms that people use of like things that are coming at you, if you don't know what's coming at you, you can't mitigate and be ready. And then you're constantly catching up. So how does what you're doing help really give a sense of better understanding? Because there's not really, in today's world constantly changing, I would imagine security is the wrong word, because things are happening in the second. But how does that help prepare people and companies? You work with the Fortune 50. What does that do for them?
Whether we're working with a Fortune 50 company or a new entrepreneur starting out, awareness is the one thing that everybody wants and needs. You need to understand the threat against you. And just to put this in context that everyone gets, we all look at the weather app in the morning, or we know what traffic looks like. We like predictability. We like consistency. Constance creates something that we can all work with. We know that dinner happens at a certain hour and kids go to bedtimes at a certain hour. But when we get up and we consider this for work, we want to know, can I get to work on time? Will my meetings go at the right time? If there's a massive disruption to network systems, can I get on my plane and get to my location on time? So the more we can inform the business executive, the better off they're going to be to do the job they need to do. And open source intelligence, in the field that we specialize in here, we not only understand what that means to the executive and how they can handle everything from their financial markets and their curve of what's coming at them from influences overseas, to productivity and supply chain. If a massive hurricane hits the coast of the Carolinas, what is influencing the import, and how is that going to affect systems being built in the middle of Indiana? If in the world today, in our national economies and how we operate with each other in a global economic fashion, if we're having business disruption with countries like China, that means Ford F-150s aren't going to get made next year. I mean, we knew it through COVID. When we saw supply chain jam up there, and we all couldn't get our Amazon deliveries fast enough. We sat there and griped and said it was this, or that, but it's a much bigger picture. And an intelligence analyst can couch that very quickly and deliver that as a product to the customer on their desktops very readily. But you don't have to be an intelligence analyst with 20 years of experience to do this. You just need to understand what websites should I be looking at, who should I be letting influence me, what is actually and indeed a resource and what isn't.
One thing that's coming to mind is Google, which was the name and still is. It's kind of like the Xerox, the Kleenex. Google was the name for search, right? You think about, I use Safari, but I don't say Safari. I say it's another site that I use because I'm a Mac user. Today, happily, I'm a Mac user. But what's coming to mind is Google now has infused AI into the search, and it can be kind of frustrating because you used to be able to get what you thought was maybe information that was usable, but now it makes stuff up. Like, you look up the word connector and it's showing you plugs, and I'm like, no, that's not what I mean. You're not telling me. So what are you seeing? And this kind of goes into the disinformation or misinformation, and now with infusing AI, how is that impacting this in what you're doing?
It's interesting that you bring up the example of AI and Google Infusion, because I would have told you even before AI got into the game. And it's been, by the way, it's been there, God, for over a decade now. Machine learning and artificial intelligence have been influencing your searches. I would ask all the listeners to do this exercise. I want you to go to Google and type in Thai restaurant, just for Thai food, just Thai restaurant. And you will see immediately all the results. I don't have to be a seer looking into a crystal ball. You will see all the Thai restaurants in your general location are going to pop up immediately. Google's never been here to be an intelligence apparatus. Google is here to sell us things in our general location because that's the business model that Google operates by. Artificial intelligence is only going to make that even more profound. Now you're going to see, and now you're going to blame AI, but the whole thing is that Google's always been there to push Thai restaurants. Really, what I wanted to know from Google is that I'm going to Thailand and I would like to know what restaurants I should choose on my trip there. Where should I be eating when I'm in Bangkok? So I can now have to add words into my searches saying I'm vacationing in Thailand and give me the best restaurants. Your searches, that's, I guess, the intel side of me when I talk about open sources. You need to know when you're being manipulated and when you aren't. And just because we're passing around disinformation and misinformation as buzzwords these days, we're being played. Listen, if it's free, it's not free. It's buying or influencing you one way or another. That's why being an operator in a space, it's important to know who and what you could trust and what. I mean, we know that we're going to use public transportation, and public transportation is only going to drop you off in 3 spots on the line that you want to get off at, and you'd really like to get off at another spot, but you've got to take it for what it is. Now you just have to craft it to work towards a better outcome for yourself. And that's being smart about what you're doing with the box in front of you, which, I always call the cell phones or whatnot is that box.
What can entrepreneurs, because a lot of our listeners are women entrepreneurs or small entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs, or emerging. What are some things that you were mentioning about startups and entrepreneurs that we should be thinking about? And I say we because I'm an entrepreneur too. What should we be cognizant of that's steps that we should be taking or thinking about?
This is fantastic. I can't be more aligned to women business owners or new owners, entrepreneurs. And though my company's 25 years old, we are rebuilding and rebranding and everything. I am going through every pain point I did. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur 25 years ago because I was just doing a job and getting paid for it. And all of a sudden, I realized I wasn't going anywhere else to do the job. I was just doing it on my own. This is the one thing I would definitely tell women business owners. 3 things. First thing, trust but verify. I do not care if you've known your contact, your supplier, or your friend for 20 years, and they're going to make you promise you everything. That is a friendship. That is not a business relationship. So I want you to make sure you run adequate background checks and screening, that you feel confident. It doesn't mean you have to drop millions of dollars, but even if you drop a few dollars and you hire a proper professional to help you do this, your friend will also appreciate it, because you can always blame the vendor. You can always say, well, I'm sorry, we can't do this work because this came up. Your reputation, your product, and your livelihood count on it. So trust but verify. The second thing I would share with any entrepreneur is do your research. Don't just take the first three options that show up, but take the time for the things that you're really truly going to spend money on. But don't overthink it. Your gut is your best intelligence tool. If your gut says this is just not the right time, it doesn't mean that it's a no, it means it's a not now. Maybe later you'll come back and have that relationship or that issue. The third and most important thing I could share for women, this came from my mom, is what you can't hide, decorate. If you're a female in an all-male industry, I don't know, maybe you're like me, and first you're explaining what you do for a living, because some people want to call you an intelligence practitioner. Some people want to say you work with computers. Some say you're security. Like, I'm a mix of everything. So I'm already explaining it. But then I have to tell them I'm a 5'0" tall librarian in the security industry with no background in law enforcement, military. I'm a true oddball, but I don't look like everybody else. I'm a Jersey girl. I got big hoop earrings and long frosted hair, and I'm going to be a Jersey girl. I'm not going to look like I'm a tough, broad-shouldered, dark-suited Secret Service retiree. I'm going to be who I am. And when you are genuine and authentic and comfortable in your own shoes, even if they're stilettos, be that person. Don't try to be what other people make you out to be. And you will be stepping out and into your business every day on the right foot, and people will understand and respect that your values, including what you see yourself as, are truly it. When I see especially young women coming out in the field and in the industry, they're always suffering, especially young, Natalie, young women. I'm seeing a lot of women, and you know, we've all had this moment of imposter syndrome. I just don't feel like I'm good enough, or I'm right enough, or I fit in this position. And I'm like, honey, if you were asked in for that phone call or that interview, it's yours. Do you realize that? It's yours. It's yours to lose. Don't give them reasons for you to lose it. Just be there and share what you have. Use the knowledge that's in your head, and don't try to do more than that. And that has been the best advice I've ever gotten.
This touches my heart because my daughter, I'm really blessed that she's working with me now. She just graduated recently, and it's really hard out there to find roles. It's very competitive. There's a lot of disinformation. And I'd love to know your opinion on this, because there's a lot of job postings that are not real, and or they just keep it open even though the job's been filled. And so you're thinking, oh, no one's applied this week, I'm going to apply to this job, this looks great. And then it's like, oh yeah, we filled it. Or they keep, what can you tell? I'm going to have my daughter listen to this, especially. What can you tell people that are in that place where they're trying to sort through the information, especially on Indeed and LinkedIn, and it seems real, but it's
Yes.
not? How do you verify? What would be a way to verify that?
So here's a little inside tip, and I'm going to be speaking to your daughter, and I've got quite a few colleagues here whose daughters also just graduated college and are on the job hunt, and they're really feeling down, because I applied for 20 jobs, and I'm like, oh, you should be getting your kid involved in finding a job in college, not after. It's not an event where you walk out the door and you walk into IBM. It's not 1982 again. They need to be getting out there and hunting. They need to be interning. They need to be creative thinkers. They have to get themselves in the door. The young people that come to work here, they beat themselves up they batter down that door to get to me. And I mean, there's one fellow, I hired him as a president of an association I own, and there was no role. It didn't exist. He showed up at the conference. He says, I am the best candidate for this. And I'm like, but there's no job. And he's like, oh, you need to make this a job. And he told me the reasons why he needed that seat, that I needed him. And I stopped and I listened to what he said. I'm like, you know, you're right. I don't have this figured out. And you sound like you would do that job for me. He goes, yeah. And I'm like, you're hired. A lot of the other young fellows and gals that come into this company also leverage your network. Natalie, if you have an entire bandwidth of listeners and people out there who are looking for young and talented and ambitious creative thinkers, then be a networker. Don't be a mom. be a businesswoman, be a networker for them. When I have the folks come to me, and I do this with the Girl Scouts in my neighborhood. So these young little cookie hustlers, their moms show up and say, my daughter's selling cookies. And I'm like, that's fantastic. I love cookies. I'm like, oh, here. And they give me the sheet like, hey, would you buy cookies? I'm like, I will not buy the cookies from you. But if your daughter comes to me and pitches me on cookies, I'll buy $1,000 worth of cookies tomorrow. And I'm kind of famous for it. That's why they all go into gift baskets out to the customers. I will make sure that her work, her effort is rewarded, that she's tried. She's asked me for money. She made a mercantile pitch. When these kids are looking at these job ads and they're not sure if that job is open or not, do your due diligence. There's the company website. Who's the head of HR on the company? What department do they want to work in? Do they want to be in strategy or marketing? Find that person on LinkedIn, message them on LinkedIn, make a compelling message that's directed and shows me that you've done your research. If I get a generic, I have 27,000 followers in LinkedIn, 26,000 friends on the same platform. I check LinkedIn messages every single day. When you look like you're just hustling something to me, like it's a generic cut and paste message, I ignore it. When you say something like, hey, Cynthia, I was just looking, I see you published a book and I'm interested in open source intelligence and how could I break into the field? I'm very interested and I would like to come and work for you. I might push you off to a website that says this is where you apply, but if you say something that's interesting in that post, you will get my attention and I will answer you. So what you can't hide, decorate. If there's something unique about your daughter, Natalie, that really stands out.
Yeah, it's so funny you said that. I'll just share it now. I'm going to share it because, I'm kind of proud of her. She moved to a totally new town in Dallas. She didn't know anybody. She independently started this thing called DFW Coffee Girl Club. And now all these women, all aged, are meeting for coffee to support local establishments. And they're meeting for coffee. And now she's doing it with other organizations and they're getting together. And now she's partnering here and there and everywhere and doing all kinds of stuff and meeting at the vendor. My daughter's like a hustler. Truly, she is.
There you go.
And so I couldn't be more proud of her and what she's doing. And 350 attempts. So not like 20, but it is what it is. But she's networking and doing all things. So I just had to share that. She's doing a great job. But for our listeners and we have time for one more question, and that is for your book. What would you like to share about that they would learn and help them with all of the information and being able to make good decisions? I think that's ultimately what we do when we have information, is we can make better decisions. So what can you tell about your book that our listeners are going to be like so excited about?
It's a labor of love and it keeps having to get updated and brought out because we are really dealing with the conditions of what the internet offers you as a search vehicle. And this gets you to doing your searches faster and better. The book is written in a very friendly, easy to read way. I mean, I'm a librarian at heart. I'm not going to write you a technical manual. There's a lot of stories about cases we've worked on. I get readers that write me all the time. They're like, oh, I can hear your voice reading to me, which is funny because I'm like, well, just think of it as story time. It's now out there in an e-version, so you could Kindle it. But this is going to hit every single market that's out there. You could be in pharma, supply chain, manufacturing, consumer goods. You could be a podcaster. You could be establishing yourself as a new influencer within your community to get people to coffee houses. This is going to make you smarter doing what you're doing, using resources that are out there that go beyond Google and make you that one layer deeper, better, smarter. The original audience for this book was for law enforcement who were transitioning out of really great positions and into the business world, but it adapted more towards the business professionals who needed to be more like the investigators. So it flipped in the last few issues because cops know what they know, but they don't know the business world. And it's easy to teach them the business world once they come out. And what we're really doing here is not only showing you those resources, but what is legally and ethically acceptable in what you're doing, because it's very much a gray area. So we'll help keep you compliant, smart, efficient, and cost effective at doing your online research for your next venture, you won't be asking me what mis or disinformation is if you read the book. We'll get you there.
So good. We'll have it in the show links. And I have really enjoyed learning all these things with you today, Cynthia. I'm so glad that we had this chance to talk. Thank you for being on the show today.
Natalie, it was a real pleasure, and I really enjoyed our little chat. And I wish the best for your daughter on her job search.
Thank you so much. Thank you for spending your time with us today. If you found this show helpful, please share it with a friend or colleague. And I would be so honored if you would rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. I know that other people want to find us, and that will help them discover the show. I also hope and invite you and encourage you to check out Women Leaders on the Move. It is so specialized and just for you at hercsuite.com. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.